words from Vermont poet Jennifer Lingelbach, which soothe my soul. Wishing the same might be true for you. Wooded dawn, blue hills, cushioned by soft fog, stage the brilliant pirouette of orange leaves against the rising sun. There's time to savor moments in the dawn before life hurries on. Good morning, friends, both near and far, on this already the 18th day of October, when once again we gather in love. And while we may celebrate this time separately from one another, as always, the umbrella of our beloved North Chapel holds us together as one for a bit of time, safe from the storm, shielded under the grace of friendship. Gratitude to you for your presence on whatever day you come to church, and for your continued support of and love for our cherished community. I am Mary Jean Taylor, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this virtual Sunday church. You know, if you go to our website, the 3ws.northchapelvt.org, you will find there is information you may not want to miss. For example, at the very bottom of the landing page, there are links for church notices and events, including how to join in the Amazing Grace meeting today, or for ordering your red flannel hash, this year, hash on the dash, or for helping plant bulbs at church. Take a peek to see what you might find. For nearly 20 years now, I have made the drive from Bethel to Woodstock for Sunday services, board and committee meetings, covenant groups, and so many wonderful events. Today, though, without even knowing it, you have made the virtual trek over the Barnard Ledges to join me in my kitchen, up on my Bethel Hill. If you don't already know this, the ledges are far worse to drive in the winter than they were today. I hope this day finds you and all those you love well, feeling strong, and able to find joy and kindness in this strange new world we live in. As you look forward to hearing Leon's thoughts, I'll leave you with words to help you feel held up during these days of uncertainty. This blessing from Irish poet John O'Donohue is for courage. He is my poet crush. When the light around you lessens and your thoughts darken until your body feels fear, cold as a stone inside. When you find yourself bereft of any belief in yourself, and all you unknowingly leaned on has fallen. When one voice commands your whole heart and it is raven dark, steady yourself and see that it is your own thinking that darkens your world. Search and you will find a diamond thought of light. Know that you are not alone and that this darkness has purpose. Gradually, it will school your eyes to find the one gift your life requires hidden within this night corner. Invoke the learning of every suffering you have suffered. Close your eyes. Gather all the kindling about your heart to create one spark. That is all you need to nourish the flame that will cleanse the dark of its weight of festered fear. A new confidence will come alive to urge you toward higher ground, where your imagination will learn to engage difficulty as its most rewarding threshold. Welcome again, everyone. Heap High, the Farmer's Wintry Hoard is our opening hymn, and you can sing to your heart's content in the comfort of your own space without worrying about your pitch.
Hello, my name is Laura Foley, and today I'm speaking to you from a hilltop in Vermont. It's quite a beautiful sight today. It's peak season in October here in Vermont. The poem I'd like to read to you today really kind of wakes us up to some of the things we might learn from little ones. And this is called "The Most Important Thing I Learned from My Granddaughter." After her long drive home, over mountains to the sea, her dad films her, sends it to me, pushing the toy shopping cart I gave her. With only a diaper for clothes, she announces to dolls, to corridor walls, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." A presence I hear ringing so loudly here, among towering hemlocks. I look to see who's speaking. Not the crow overhead, nor snow, hills, nor limb breaking in wind. This ringing I hear buying groceries from a masked cashier. As I pass friends entering, as I exit, all of us hurrying to somewhere else. The ringing I hear, looking into my wife's eyes as I serve her coffee. I realize the one singing, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here," is me.
I allow myself to be still, I become aware of a quiet energy in my inner space, patiently awaiting my presence, my intention, my commitment.
Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. The title of this morning's reflection is Sweet Grapes. You know, sometimes I wonder about joyful laughter. I wonder if it just might be the key to our survival. So, okay, weird joke. A duck walks into a bar. He walks up to the bartender and he says, "Hey man, have you got any grapes?" And the bartender, somewhat surprised by the awkward question by this duck, knowing that they usually only sell beer and wine and harder alcohols, responds somewhat politely. He says, "No, this is a bar. We don't have any grapes." And at this, the duck turns and tips his hat and walks out of the bar without saying another word. Next day, same bar, same bartender. The same duck walks into a bar and he says, "Hey man, got any grapes?" And doubly stunned, the bartender becomes a little bit more frustrated this time. And he says, "Aren't you the same duck that was in here before? Look man, I told you yesterday and I'm telling you today, we don't have any grapes. Now get out of my bar before I nail your webbed feet to the floor." And once again at this, the duck turns and tips his hat and leaves the bar without saying anything more. Next day, day 3, same bar, same bartender. Duck walks into the bar and he walks up to the bartender just as he had done the day before and the day before that, and he says, "Hey man, have you got any nails?" And the bartender is somewhat surprised, so he answers matter-of-factly, No, we don't have any nails." And the duck says, "Have you got any grapes?" Okay, now this is one of my favorite jokes, mostly because I remember it. I don't remember jokes very well. I rarely remember them. They leave my head even when I think they're funny. But I remember this one because my dad told it to me. I don't remember it sentimentally, like this was the last good joke that my dad told me before he died, even though that's probably true. That's not why I remember it. I remember this joke because my dad loved it so much that he couldn't get through this joke without laughing. He just couldn't get through it. I was laughing, watching him tell me this funny joke. And I'm pretty sure that he didn't need me to appreciate the joke with him. He was having a fine time all on his own. I love this quality about my dad. I still love this quality about him. His laughter is larger than his life, and his laughter lives in me more vibrantly than do the pictures and even the stories. The way my dad's laugh lives in me is a powerful thing. I wish that my experience, I want my experience of the holy to be that fresh and that immediate. I feel like I am sufficiently reverent. I feel that I am devout in many ways. I am deeply respectful. I am respectful enough to be honest about the fact that I think that God is everywhere around us laughing. Now, I'm not personifying the holy here. I'm not anthropomorphizing. I'm not trying to imagine that God is a person who is laughing like my dad at his duck joke. What I mean to say is that if we listen, we might hear the holy laughing around us, if we quiet down enough, if we open our hearts. Now, I don't know if you are of the mind or of the inclination to be put off by the language that I'm using here, by my use of the word God. I would understand that. If it's useful to you, I will share that I think of God in many, many ways. Right here and right now, and for the purpose of this reflection, I am thinking of God as the best in us becoming possible. That's my understanding of it right now. So I grew up in a deeply humanist and I think profoundly religious church. Not everyone felt as I did, of course, and for me, that's part of what made it so special. It was not a place of conformity or of fear or of pressure or anxiety. In fact, on the pulpit, there were signals of the major faiths of the world. There was the star and crescent. There was the Star of David. There was the cross. There was the yin and yang symbol. There were symbols of all of the world's faith. It was symbolically all of them. Of course, there are far more symbols than could fit on this tiny pulpit. I never imagined that anyone in the church believed the same things I did. I never expected them to, and I never wanted them to. I did want them to believe and understand and explore that which was sacred and most powerful for them. I didn't want to install my opinions on others, and I didn't want their opinions forced on me, but I did want to share them, and we did share these things with each other. The thing that I loved so dearly, the thing that I still love so dearly about the old church, is that it was a community of people that came together and encouraged the best in themselves and in one another. What do you think about that idea? What does the idea of church mean to you? Now, let's go back in time for a moment, shall we? In 1836, the year before North Chapel was dedicated, actually, in 1836, a Unitarian minister named Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote an essay entitled Nature. In it, Reverend Emerson grappled with the idea. He grappled with his great anxiety about what he might have called the empty traditions of the past. He wanted something fresher and more vital, and he asked, quote, "Why should not we enjoy an original relationship with the universe? Why should we grope among the dry bones of the past? The sun shines today also. There's more wood, there's more wool and flax in the fields, and there are new lands and new men and new thoughts. Let's demand our own works, our own laws, and our own worship." Emerson longed for a first-hand experience of life. He wanted to meet life face to face. He wanted to greet it with laughter. He longed to see the holy in the waters of a lake, in the constellations in the heavens, in a flower that was newly blossomed, even though no one was watching. Ralph Waldo Emerson was passionate about the experience of life, and he wrote poetry about it. He wrote, "In May, when sea winds pierced our solitudes, I found the fresh rhodora in the woods, spreading its leafless blooms in a damp nook to please the desert and the sluggish nook. Rhodora. If the sages ask thee why this charm was wasted on the earth and sky, tell them, dear, that if eyes were made for seeing, then beauty is its own excuse for being. Why thou wert there, O rival of the rose, I never thought to ask, I never knew, but in my simple ignorance suppose the self-same power that brought me there brought you." I remember hating Ralph Waldo Emerson's poetry when I was younger. I remember not liking this poem in particular. In fact, I looked it up because I wanted to remember how much I disliked it, but now I love it. It's so funny. I don't feel foolish or ashamed about this in any way. I'm delighted to be wrong about what I didn't like in the past, about what I couldn't reach. I can reach it now, and my life is richer for it. We don't have to grope among the dry bones of the past, but we certainly can if we want to. Poetry doesn't sound like this anymore. We've gotten better, we've gotten hipper, but just like Emerson, we still grapple with our great anxiety about the empty traditions of the past. We long for something fresher and more vital. How are we going to do that? How are we going to invent that fresher and more vital art? How are we to outrun the past and find the sweet grapes of our time, especially against the ongoing challenges of the COVID crisis? Now, I think that we find these sweet grapes of life by becoming more honest with ourselves. When we are not honest with ourselves, we risk settling for sour grapes. Sour grapes. Have you heard this expression before? Are you familiar with it? It comes from a foxy tale about a foxy tale that's told by an ancient and famous Greco-African storyteller, a man named Aesop. He tells the story of a fox who was wandering through the woods and sees these grapes that were hanging from the low branch of a tree. And the fox is thirsty and hungry and longs to be nourished by these delicious-looking grapes. And the fox leaps and leaps but can't reach the grapes. So the fox pulls back and has a running start and leaps as hard and as high as he possibly can. And again, he cannot reach the grapes. Again and again he tries, and again he fails. Finally, so discouraged, he says, "What a fool am I? I am here, why am I here wearing myself out for a bunch of sour grapes that aren't even worth leaping for?" And at this he turns away and walks away, disparaging the fruit that he's leaving behind. There are those who pretend to despise and to belittle that which is beyond their reach. Now the fox was not honest with himself. And for his own inward dishonesty, he gave lie to the outer world. This deeply flawed logic was as follows: because I cannot personally reach the grapes that I long to taste, because I cannot be nourished by them, they must be sour grapes. The fox's was a narrow, naive wisdom. But as we know, there really is no such thing. The fox was foolish. One cannot be both naive and wise. These two qualities are antithetical. They contradict each other. That contradiction somehow sours me. I long to be nourished by the sweetnesses of life. I want to be less like the fox in the ancient story and more like the duck in my dad's weird joke, the joke that he loved so much. I don't want to be naive and stuck in some ancient tale about sour grapes. I want to be the wise one, laughing to the heavens and enjoying all of the sweetnesses of life. I want the sweet grapes, and I am willing to take on a little risk to try to find them. Now, what are the sweet grapes of life? The sweet grapes are those thoughts that cluster together, that can be taken and enjoyed one at a time or as a whole. They nourish our lives, these sweet grapes, and leave us wiser and better off. I learned about the sweet grapes from the Reverend I knew as a child, the Reverend Harold Dean, back in New Jersey. I was wandering through his library one day, and I opened a book, and I came across his handwritten inscription in the beginning of it. I read it down, and I wrote it down then, and I still have it with me now. His words were these: "I believe in the creative power at work in the universe. I believe in the mystery of life, in the divine in every person, in the possibility of a better world, and in the lasting effects of all of my actions. I believe in the redemptive power of love, in the increase of knowledge through the use of reason, in the respect for my own thoughts. I believe in honoring those who have fought for new ideas, and I believe in the reverence for all that is true and good and beautiful." It was signed Harold R. Dean, 1954. We have 7 principles in Unitarian Universalism today, but it's important to know that these principles come out of a living past, a living tradition that is not calcified. It is not the dry bones that Emerson worried about, but is a vibrant, rich tradition if we know how to look for it. These sweet grapes of life may seem unattainable sometimes, and this is good. That unattainability forces us to stretch, and sometimes we need to stretch, especially now. Now, I couldn't help myself this week. I spent a good bit of time listening to the confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett. It has been so interesting. She sees things so differently than I do, but conflicts about her views are not at the center of the current crisis. Our integrity is at the center of the current crisis. In 2016, the Senate Majority Leader blocked the nomination of Merrick Garland, Obama's choice to replace Antonin Scalia. The logic in 2016 was that we were too close to a presidential election and that the people should decide who the next justice of the Supreme Court should be. In 2016, we were 9 months out. Quite obviously, we are not 9 months out right now. We are voting now. And yet those same officials who argued one way in 2016 are arguing in a different way now. It's hypocritical. It lacks integrity, and the common good pays the price, no matter what the views no matter what views Judge Barrett holds. Now, when this hypocrisy is presented by Democrats and independent Republicans, these good people are shut down. Republicans get dismissed as wayward traitors to the party, even though they're absolutely right. And Democrats get dismissed and they are seen as whining about the sour grapes. But it's important to remember that this is not the meaning of sour grapes. Sour grapes doesn't translate crassly. It doesn't mean you guys lost, so shut up now. Sour grapes refers not to the fruit that is left behind, but to the foolish fox who falsely forecloses on that which is beyond him. Those who defend honesty and integrity do not judge and foreclose in this way. For this, they are neither foolish nor false, quite the opposite. Regardless of their parties, they reach for the sweetness in life. On the other hand, those who do judge and do foreclose, those who are less careful with their integrity, may just be both foolish and wise. It stands to reason. It's only logical. Oliver Wendell Holmes was one such independent Republican. In the Civil War, he fought. This is a picture of him in a book that he wrote called The Common Law. Back in the day, he fought in the Civil War, and he fought in the 20th Regiment of Massachusetts. He was a graduate of Harvard Law School. He was a Boston Unitarian. And for 30 years, from 1902 to 1932, Holmes was a justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Despite the hardships that he suffered in life, he still seems to have reached for the sweetness. That sweetness was well within his reach. Oliver Wendell Holmes was very wise. He said that the mark of a civilized man is his willingness to re-examine his own most cherished beliefs. He said, "My right to swing my fists ends where your nose begins." And he says, "I like to pay taxes. With them, I buy civilization." This is particularly interesting in light of the disturbing tax history of the current president. More insightfully, Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "The history of intellectual growth and the history of intellectual growth and discovery clearly demonstrates the need for the unfettered freedom, the right to think the unthinkable, the right to discuss the unmentionable, the right to challenge the unchallengeable. With wisdom as deep as this, it's easy to imagine a future that is compassionate." Lastly, Justice Holmes said, "If I had a formula for bypassing trouble, I wouldn't pass it around. I wouldn't be doing anyone any favor. Trouble creates the capacity to handle it. I don't say embrace trouble. That's as bad as treating it as an enemy. But I do say meet it as a friend, for you will see a lot of it and had better be on speaking terms with it." In this regard, Justice Holmes has much in common with Georgia Representative, the late John Lewis, who implored us, saying, "Don't get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful. Be optimistic." Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and to get in good, necessary trouble. So let's get ourselves on speaking terms with some good and necessary trouble, neither embracing it nor treating it like a mortal enemy. Let's treat trouble as one would a distant and difficult friend, for trouble is a teacher. Trouble creates the capacity to handle it. And that's no joke. I wonder sometimes if joyful laughter might just be the key to our survival, the laughter that lives within us, delivered by the people that we've known and loved. The laughter that contains touches of the sacred. I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I believe that joy will see us through. I believe in the sweet grapes. I'm very serious about it. Okay, so a duck walks into a bar. The point is, driven by the very hardships that break us down, we can keep laughing and finding joy. May it be so, blessed be, and amen.
Walk a mile, walk a mile in your neighbor's shoes. Walk a mile, walk a mile in your neighbor's shoes. You will understand them better if you walk a mile, walk a mile in your neighbor's shoes. Walk a mile, walk a mile in your neighbor's shoes. Walk a mile, walk a mile in your neighbor's shoes. You'll understand them better if you do. Walk a mile and see the world, see the world through your neighbor's eyes. See the world through your neighbor's eyes. See the world, see the world through your neighbor's eyes. There's so many things you'll come to realize. Walk a mile if you live a day. If you live a day in your neighborhood. If you live a day in your neighborhood. Live a day. If you live a day in the neighborhood. You'll understand